Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, point guard checked off the list for Grant McCaslin and the Red Raiders. What's next?
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And we're getting started today on a happy front. And by the way, we're going to finish on a happy front. Always good to discuss positive news for our Red Raiders. We'll get to a football conversation before we are out of here that more so will turn into a fan conversation. So we'll applaud you guys out there who have put your money where your mouth is as far as season ticket sales go. But we're also, when we last left, getting back to a basketball conversation that was a lot of fun to have. As you know by now, Elijah Hawkins, the former Minnesota Golden Gopher, has chosen to ride with the Red Raiders. So going back to a previous conversation, considering that spot on the floor, priority number one for Texas Tech as we move through these portal waters, Chris, can now check that off the list. Does it mean you're looking elsewhere? Are we still talking perimeter? Are we talking front court? And some of those that could be next to come as far as names entering and exiting a list of options. So weekend coming up, always great time to look ahead to some possible visits as well. But before we get to all of that, I want to get back to Elijah Hawkins. And I know Texas Tech very excited to have his name on a list of roster members moving in to next year.
Yeah, you are no longer a rudderless ship, at least on the court. You now have somebody that is can run your team and all those things. And I have thoroughly enjoyed. I think the best compliment that Elijah Hawkins can get is how frustrated, angry, upset. Insert all of those kind of little phrases there. You could even go further, but we'll keep it friendly for the young folk in the audience. That the Minnesota fan base is that Elijah Hawkins has left them. This is probably somewhat similar to maybe some of the TJ Shannon. Kevin McCullough, maybe even Pop Isaacs, all the commentary that maybe some of the Tech fans have gone through, because whether there's levels to this, whether you think the player departing your program was just a stud, or you're trying to rationalize in your own mind, I didn't like him anyway, or he can't do this. Or he's he's not that, and so you know what? We need that. We don't need this. And so, but I've watched the Minnesota kind of fan base kind of do their thing. They've tried to besmirch the name of Elijah Hawkins, and I'm not here for that.
It's the stages of grief.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, anyways, I think now you have an on-the-court leader, and I think that'll be his biggest. That's his biggest role, but it's also his biggest challenge, because it's somebody that he's used to playing point guard, but you have to come in and I don't know if the right term is win over, but you've got to get teammates to trust you and really, really fast. And they're all going to be looking to you. We talked about that on one of the last shows we did about Chance McMillan. No wonder Red Raider fan base, show this guy some love. He's the one that can get me the ball in the corner. I can put up these threes, that you like, but somebody's got to get it to me. He will have to earn the trust of his teammates. I'm sure that the visit went well and all those things over the weekend. And he's now he's now maybe your most important player all of a sudden. And there is no, at least yet anyway, there is no like sidekick that you can, because I probably need to see a bit more of Kevin Overton in like Big 12 and like in this frame to understand, could he actually handle this? Because again, think about what we were feeling whenever Elijah Hawkins was not on your team and how vulnerable you felt. How could you get through a game, a season, a stretch of games and all that without somebody running the show? And so that's why I say, I don't know, maybe there's another, guard addition that can kind of help there. And maybe I'm underestimating, Kevin Overton's ability or Chance McMillan's ability. We didn't see any of that from Chance this last year. So, but this was a monster ad. I think it made some news. And then what was interesting to me is once that happens, you start to see some other guards come off the board, if you will, rather quickly, because Hawkins was linked to Kentucky. And I think a day-ish later, they end up with Kirk Quisa from West Virginia. And then West Virginia ends up with Javon Small from Oklahoma State. And so it's like this rotation. It's like, well, I lost a point guard. I need a point guard. I'll take yours. Okay, well, I lost one. Now I'll take yours. I mean, it just merry-go-round, the domino effect. But big time addition, man. And this was the best player you've added in the portal for sure.
Yeah, and we had talked about, as you already mentioned here today, the importance of that spot, and if you were able to get him, that it would be as good of a get as you had gotten, with all due respect to the previous two so far through this portal window. But I'm curious now as we look ahead to kind of what else might be out there for Texas Tech, and these things move so quickly. You hear about, well, this guy's lost interest in that program, so what does it mean for Texas Tech? Or this program has taken this guy, or whatever it might be. So things continue to move very, very quickly. And I think it's also maybe a decent time to remind everyone, as you've reminded us before, that the bind factor is very low until you're sitting in a classroom. Like it's non-existent, I guess. So anything can still happen. That's why you want to remain buckled up. But what's on the horizon with some of the names that you had already mentioned to us this week? Whether they're still in the picture, whether there are still visits scheduled possibly for the weekend, seems like a great time for a visit coming up this weekend, or some that may have left the picture.
It changes so quickly. I feel like what we mentioned last time is now like, wad that newspaper up, throw it in the trash.
That's ancient history, man.
Yeah. I mean, and it all changes rather quickly. And it's tricky to get into it, like even right now, because people could watch it by early this, today, midday, later today, and it could be it could have changed a bunch then. But I'll say this, it appears that like Trezarian White and Javon Buchanan, a couple of those wing players that we've mentioned, that they are either it was mutual or they are no longer considering Texas Tech, and maybe it was. Like I said, Texas Tech saying, hey, man, we're going a different direction. But you still have, my math is right, 5 spots to fill. And you're going to fill a couple of these at least with guys that you still are going to lean on and plan on leaning on, big ticket items, however you want to phrase it. Somebody that can play in the paint. Maybe that's Great Obasor, but again, he's on his visit to Louisville right now. He's the kid from Utah State. He's apparently no longer considering Kentucky. Again, if what which way's the wind blowing? And some of this stuff, like I said, it can change rather quickly. But it's best to just keep going on need or wish list. And I think that's definitely something, you want somebody that can play the 4 or the 5. They can legitimately play right now. They can contribute, maybe even start. And then I think you want somebody that is a wing player still that potentially could factor in heavily, potentially could be a depth piece or rotational piece. It just depends on what you get. And then you kind of get these people in here and then let the chips fall and sort out your rotation then. But I think you're looking for a little protection from Devin Cambridge too, just because, he's going to be rehabbing in these spring and summer months, and you're not exactly sure when he'll be full go and when he'll be the player that you he can be, or that you hope that he will be. Is that November 1? Is that December 1? Is that January 1? And so I think that you'd like a little, another option on your team at that spot too. So, but as we can get into here, you can want all you want. You can wish for all that you want, but can you get it?
Yeah, that's the big question. With Osobor, is that – I know that we were thinking he was headed to Lubbock, I guess, coming up this weekend or sometime in the near future whenever we began the week. As far as you know, is that still on the books, or has he been a guy that has left the picture? Any feel for his situation specifically? Because it kind of seemed like he would be one of those next sort of linchpins, like if you get or if you don't get, then now you're opening yourself up to this other list of names potentially.
Well, how did you say his last name? I like the way you said it better than I've been saying it.
I said it wrong earlier this week, so I'm going with Osobor.
Okay, I've been calling him Osobor, so I'm not real sure.
I went Obasor, which is not even the order the letters are in, so I don't know where I got that. I think I'm just thinking Kevin O'Banner, but Obanor.
He's great. Would
right.
you know that?
It was great.
Literally, figuratively, all that. He's
a lot
great.
of pressure on the kids since he came out the womb.
That's right. That's his first name. This is going to be one of those deals where, Andrew Carr is going to be on a very short list of kids that came here on a visit that didn't choose you. Your hit rate still continues to be very high. So with great, scheduled to show up to Texas Tech after his visit, he's got another visit scheduled after that, though, and so this is one of those. If you get a visit, look out. If you don't, then you really never had a great. I did that. Yeah, see,
keep coming.
Yeah, you didn't have a great chance. I'm really mad at myself there. Yeah, because folks out there that are listening, watching, his name's Great Obasor. Yeah, or Osobor or Obasor, one of the two. Yeah, there you go. That's right. But if he comes on his visit, because see, we were worried about Hawkins taking that Kentucky visit, never took it, and so he kind of got it wrapped up. Was like, okay, I found where I want to be. And so if you get a visit from this Utah State big, then like I said, look out. If not, there's other names. I think a lot of people have been real fascinated by the name of I think his name's AJ Toppin out of New Mexico. That was the Mountain West Freshman of the Year. Should sound familiar. That you got this version of that last year in Darion Williams, and I think this particular player has some ties to folks on Texas Tech staff. Was even teammates with one of your walk-on commitments and all those things. So we shall see kind of where that there'll be some serious competition there, but obviously you have some proximity and some relationship advantages there. So and he so he would fit the need. He's a 6'10", 6'11" type forward as well. So yeah, man, that's clearly, I guess, now moves to the front of the list on kind of wish list / needs for you as somebody that can play the 4, the 5, that can suck up 20 to 35 minutes a game and do it well. And then after that, you start, okay, wing, maybe another guard, maybe somebody that's not expecting to come in here and start, those kinds of things. But that's kind of where you're at right now. And again, you still have so much time left. You have a long way to go. However, the portal window is closed. So if you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're not an option unless you get a coaching change out there in the college basketball world. There will be no more additions to the portal. Okay, but if somebody takes a job, gets fired for a job for being in Cincinnati when they thought they were in a different city and they were just swerving around and like, hey man, coach, is everything okay? And then the beer cans are falling out of the car. Unless something like that happens, I think that the who's in is in, who's out is not an option. So yeah, we shall see.
Or if you got another head coach visiting his favorite Italian restaurant after hours just to help clean up, whatever the case might be. I think the Toppin kid's first name is JT. This is kind of like I don't know, back in the day when you'd like simulate a franchise on a video game, and there's just all these like made up names out there, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna get this guy, I'm gonna get that guy. This is what it feels like here, because if you're talking like NBA or professional free agency, typically these names have been established on a national level, so you kind of have a feel for who these guys are. It's so difficult, though, to keep up with these names that you're hearing for the very first time. But I will say this, just calling Mountain West Freshman of the Year, and at Texas Tech, we're going green light on any Mountain West Freshman of the Year, I think, year after year now, given what you've already referenced.
What I call him, AJ?
I think you called him AJ, yeah. There's probably an AJ out there we want, too. So I don't know. If there's an AJ out there interested in Texas Tech, come on down.
Yeah, which is what I named a rabbit years and years ago, a pet rabbit, when I was, a little kid, and it stood for Air Jordan. I was a corny little fella. I'm like, hey, man, that was my favorite basketball player. I'm like, this thing can jump.
Let me guess. He had hops.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can go cornball, too. Okay, you keep mentioning wish list, and I wanted to ask you about sort of a bigger picture as it relates to that with Grant McCaslin's roster. First, today's episode brought to you by Monopoly Go, and we've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime of the big game, and the scoreboard's not looking too good. You're feeling low. You're not sure you or your team are going to be able to pull out a win, and that's when you dig deep. Lift your head up and say to yourself, it's time to get back in the game and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. And you can do just that with the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies and tell them all about it whenever you're kicking their butts. You can also play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, or charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go today for free in the App Store or on Google Play. I don't know, going back to last year and the way that he put that together, given the timeline of his departure from North Texas, and then when he had the opportunity to really begin to invest in Texas Tech roster building, I didn't get a great feel for what I thought would be a McCaslin style sort of roster. And then obviously as we go through the season last year, you have the Cambridge injury, then you have the Washington injury. I don't even know that I got a great feel for like what minutes he likes to allot to this type of player or that type of player. Does he really prioritize a front court? Would he love a Twin Towers type of landscape? Or is it all about guard play or a tweener or whatever it could be? I know these can be very difficult questions to even answer because, again, it's dependent upon a wish list. And sometimes those wishes don't come true. But how do you approach that sort of thing with Grant McCaslin? Do you have a feel yet sort of for what his preference would be as far as the way that personnel's kind of divvied up?
The way I would sum that up is that I think that it was differently when you had an identity of your program, before the portal era. Because you could recruit to an identity, you could develop to an identity. You had specifics and skill sets that you were looking for and like recruited to such things. I mean, Callan, these days, man, your roster is changing year to year, and like you may have some preferences, but there's no guarantee that you can land that. It's what can. What do we want versus what we can get versus who's interested in us versus who are we interested in. NIL factors in, roles factor in, like as in we'd really love this person to come be a rotational piece, but he's wanting to go somewhere where he can start. We don't have a fit here, and all that factors in. So I think that, I think the one thing that they, went into the offseason saying to themselves is they knew they needed to get deeper and bigger. Okay. I think, Kevin Overton being a 6'5" guard, and then obviously Federico times 2 is the 6'10", defensive rim protector and all those things. But so you've gotten a bit bigger, or simply replace some of the pieces that, I don't know if you're necessarily deeper yet. We don't know that. I'm sure they feel like they are because they've got some proven pieces. that have started games and all those things. You've got 3 really experienced players that you've added into your, and I say really experienced. I mean, Overton in just the 1 year, he played a ton. But I think that, you can prefer, hey, we need to go find shooting. We prefer really good defense, and that's going to win out. I mean, but what can you go get? What is available to you? And like I said, the NIL, the role available, the minutes available, prior relationship. Yeah, I don't know them. They don't know us, and so then there's just all kinds of dynamics, and so these rosters are changing year to year, and so that's a really difficult question to try to answer, to try to mold if you're Grant McCasland. But the best compliment I can give Grant and his staff is that I would be willing to bet you that last year's pieces weren't exactly as they would have drawn up. However, they took it and said, this group can run. We're going to play to our strengths. We're going to coach to our strengths. We're going to morph them into a very competitive and semi-up-tempo team, right? And it worked to the tune of a 4th place finish in the Big 12 and an NCAA tournament appearance and all those things. And you'll be asked to do the same thing again. Now, you have a little more say-so and some continuity with what you are bringing back in next year. And then you're kind of have more of a full cycle of guys that you're trying to bring into your deal. But you may morph it or tweak it depending on what you're able to get and how you feel like they would play best. And it, whether that's running up down the floor or slowing it down and grinding it out, who knows? But that's a fascinating question to try to answer in 2024, which is far different than, say, 2018 or any year previous or in the early 20s, kind of thing.
Yeah, no question. And I, as a fan, I take some solace in the fact that, all the pivoting that was forced to be done last year, whether prior to the season or in season, roster-wise, resulted in success, like you just alluded to there. I take some solace in the fact that your head coach and his coaching staff can work that out, because it gives you some, obviously you're going to have pivoting to be done within every season. I mean, you're not going to just have, I don't think, things go perfectly all the while. And obviously during recruiting cycles or portal cycles, you're not going to have everyone land that you're going after. So you're going to have to adapt and have to adjust. And I think Grant McCaslin and his staff went a long way in proving that they can do just that. And speaking of his staff, we've had a lot of questions in the YouTube comments about obviously a replacement for Dave Smart. Is there any pressing timeline as far as maybe when you could have an expectation for that to come to fruition?
Nope. It's the right fit. And don't rule out, there continues to be some head coach names that get floated as possibilities, and I say names as in plural, that are current head coaches. And, it's kind of like Ben McCollum last year, right? Who his name would just never leave the conversation. He was a head coach. Are those conversations like, man, I just don't know if I want to leave my post as a head coach to take an assistant job?
Yeah.
Hey, man, keep me on the back burner. Let me see how I can get through the portal or what I can get done here. If not, man, I'm going to be very interested. You don't know how those conversations are going, but don't rule that out. But there's no timetable. No. Grant McCasland will be fairly busy in the latter part of this month. I don't know exactly the commitment there, but as far as timetable, but the latter part of May, I know he's involved with the USA basketball stuff, the under 18 team, I think it is, or under 21 maybe. That's another AJ or JT moment. I'm not sure what age group it is, but one of the developmental teams, and I think it's a big recruiting advantage. You get around a lot of good players and coaches and all that stuff. But like he'll be busy with that the latter part of the month, and so I don't know if you try to have somebody in place by then. I mean, ideally, when you reconvene by early June, like I guess whenever summer one starts, that would be, ideally. But remember, Coach Smart didn't get in here until midsummer last year, and they took he had his fingerprints all over this deal, and rather quickly. So I would say that's to be determined, but and don't rule out the fact that you could maybe, do you consider hiring somebody that is attached to some players? There's that out there too. So
yes, I would consider that. Okay, so translation, Darvin Ham, come on down, back to the LBK. Surely you're tired of LeBron James by now. Also, my candidacy is still very much alive, and I'm glad you mentioned being a head coach previously, because I did make a stop as a head coach in the Littlefield Little Dribblers League once upon a time. We had them flummoxed by our offense, oppressed by our defense. They didn't know which way they were going, coming or going back in the day. Was it a part of community service or not? Those files are sealed. Okay, great stuff. And be on the lookout. I think last I saw as far as a pressing visit was May 4th, which would be Saturday, possibly for Osobor. He's got to clear some of these other hurdles as far as visits elsewhere with prominent programs. So we'll see what comes to pass here this weekend. But make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you miss nothing on that front. On another front, it's time to pat Freudian slip, the Texas Tech football fan on the back. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Never sweat buying tickets to your favorite events again with Gametime. It's always a breeze using the Gametime app, where you're going to find the best last-minute deals. And I love being able to scout out a view from any seat before pulling the trigger. And of course, it's always at the lowest price, guaranteed. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means you can finish off that last beer at the tailgate at your own pace, because Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. They give you the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets, but not just fast and easy, also secure and simple to use. So right now, download the Gametime app and create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem our promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. Season ticket sales announced as sold out for the second consecutive season. I think a little over 30,000, 32,000, something like that. You're cooking with at Jones Stadium. Obviously going to be a new and improved Jones Stadium. Chris, we're going to need something on the field to match what's going on in the stands, obviously. But as for now, a lot to be excited about as far as that number being filled once again.
Yeah, and capacity just a hair smaller than it has been, obviously, with the construction. But I think that the fact that, in these terms, typically you are 3 months from now is when you're making a season tickets or sold out announcement. And the fact that it's in early May as opposed to, early August or whatever, or mid-August, whatever it may be, I think that speaks to kind of where you're at. I mean, because think about it, man. If you're in Lubbock and you move here, it's like, man, I'd like to get tickets to baseball or basketball or football. You can't. I mean, not unless you already have them. There's a waiting list for basketball. There's a waiting list for baseball. And now you show up and football. Not that you can't attain tickets somehow, single game or whatever, yeah. But it speaks to the nucleus. And man, this is where the season ticket fan base for football is really, and football ticket sales is what funds a lot of what you do. You will hear schools and administrators across the country like really embracing, please buy season tickets for, and show up, use them, all the things, because football home dates with whatever TV dollars you are getting, football home crowds, those home crowds are typically funding most everything else, and I say that. I mean, I think it's different in every school, but we've seen it reported before where a Tech home game to the university is worth, and again, it may change now because of the new construction and you've got additional suites and all these things, but yeah, it's like it's somewhere between 1 and 2 million revenue every time you have a home game with its capacity, and so that is. That adds up when you have 7 home games, and things are getting more expensive, and you start to see about paying athletes and all the things that are cost is going up on all this stuff. And so, yeah, home games and full crowds for the said home games is a big deal. And Joey's done his part too. Maybe we talk about that tomorrow a little bit, how impressive that aspect has been compared to his predecessors.
Yeah, I think I saw first in the Big 12 conference to report a season ticket sellout. So also something that's fun to think about. And in the kingdom that you control at RedRaidersports.com, I saw some folks going back and forth about this is going to make people think that there are no tickets available. There will be tickets available. Single game tickets obviously will still be sold. If you're someone out there that hears season tickets sold out and you think that means there will not be any tickets available, raise your hand, because you got a tack hammer coming the way of your head, because you are very special to us. And I just wanted to make sure I say that. There will be tickets still out there.
I would say this to anybody out there that's watching or listening to us. There has never been a football game. Some of them are more difficult now. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but there's never been a football game that if you didn't want to be in that stadium, it just was unattainable. Now, a Texas game in 2008, even the Oregon game this last year, was a bit tricky. It's about asking aloud, getting on like a RedRaidersports.com and posting, hey, I need tickets. Anybody have extra? I'll pay for it. I mean, there are always tickets available if you know where to look, who to ask, whatever. So don't, no one should freak out. And I don't, they obviously are not going to sell every ticket in the venue as a season ticket option.
Right. 32,000.
Yeah, because you've got students get an allotment. You've got space for the band. The suites are sold. Club seating is sold. And then all the season ticket aspects and the regular bowl, if you will. So yeah, you don't freak out. It's May. Please don't do that. And here's the harsh reality, Calvin. I think that tickets will become easier to come by really going forward without like an OU or a Texas on your schedule. Are you telling me that you if you really want to go to watch Arizona State play, you're not going to be able to go? It'll happen, people. If you want to go, you'll be able to go. Cincinnati, Baylor. I mean, maybe Colorado this year is a really tough ticket, but that's just the harsh truth, And so, but kudos to the fan base for wanting to show up and watch the home team, regardless of who they're playing against, because it's a social event as much as it is an athletic one. And
for sure,
yeah, you've done really well in recent years.
And hopefully Texas Tech, it'll be on them now, and hopefully they meet this as a team to make it just as difficult of a ticket to get as any other, because they're winning, and they're an enjoyable show to take in. I'm also curious in the bell tower seats. I don't know when they're releasing those, or if you got to have a hunch in your back, but I'd be curious, and I'd be happy to be up there ringing that son of a gun. We are going to have bells, right? I got to double check on that. Surely a bell tower will have a bell in it. So electric, digital, analog, whatever it might be. I don't know if you need a Quasimodo to man that or not, but I could be your guy. All right, Chris.
I like my guys. There's two different ones that ring it on the field, like the Saddle Tramp dudes, like I mean, they're like, just like
that's the big Phil look, I think.
That's right. And just like, man, I'm ringing this thing. I don't care who's watching. I mean, you're just getting after it, man, and trying to not to pull a muscle. You're just ringing that bell so hard.
Just hoping the cameraman's doing you right on the angle, which they rarely do. But nonetheless, we continue to persevere. Okay, good stuff, Chris. Great to be back with you, my man. We'll be back for one more to wrap up the week coming up on the other side. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow. Weekend is near.
That's right. And get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Best way to help us grow the show is to comment anything below on YouTube. So get in there and mix it up with the other Locked On Texas Tech faithful. Thanks for being out there, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.